Hi, everyone. We're so glad that you're here with us today. We are going to be doing a session on advocacy made easy. And this is Liz Martin. I want to introduce you to her. She is our advocacy representative on TexTESOL 5. And I'm Katie Welch. I'm currently serving as the treasurer at TexTESOL 5. Before we get started talking about advocacy, we want to just tell you a little bit about ourselves so you know where we're coming from. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself a little?
Hi, I'm Liz Martin, and I've been on the board many years, and I've had the privilege of going to the advocacy meetings, and our TexTESOL 5 chapter has been very supportive of that and wanting to make sure that we keep up with what's happening at the minute for our English language learners, adults, teachers, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Liz spent a long time in Grand Prairie ISD, and so she is very familiar with the needs of the bilingual ESL population, and so she's a wonderful representative for us when she goes to advocate on English learners' behalf and on behalf of the teachers of English learners, which you are. A little bit about me. I have 6 years of service to TexTESOL 5. I served as president and state conference chair, but currently am the treasurer of the organization. And the reason I mention that is because your conference fee that you paid today to be here actually helps us to not only put on conferences, but also to fund a lot of this type of work. And so the advocacy work that Liz does on behalf of our organization, she's your voice. She's our seat at the table at really important conversations that are happening. And so we appreciate you being here today at the conference and want you to know that your fee not only gives you membership to our organization, but not only helps fund our scholarships that we provide to English learners, but also helps us to be able to advocate on their behalf and on your behalf in Washington, D.C. So we're going to tell you a little bit about that today, and I'm going to pass it off to Liz, we're going to start kind of big picture. What is some of the legislation that is currently the priority issues that are going on that relate to English learners? And then we're going to transition into specifically what happens when Liz goes to DC on these trips to advocate. And then also, how can you get involved? How can you use your voice to help elevate the needs of English learners and also our profession itself? So we're going to start with that big picture of the legislation.
Very nice. So you see recent legislation on this slide, and last year, the 22 Congress was the 117th Congress. Currently, we're in the 118th Congress. If you look at that, one of the important bills was the Reaching English Learners Act, and the second one, it's the Learning Act of Spell. And you think, like, what could spell be? And so what it is, we asked for funding to provide monetary support to teachers who are taking classes and serving English language learners, because as you know, you have to have a little bit more expertise and a degree that enables you to teach those students. So that was a big thing. Go to the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's not just the English learners, but it's actually providing funding for classes for teachers of English learners. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Here's some other current priorities.
This is what they were proposing for the 2023 budget. You see ESSA Titles 1, 2, and 3. Many of you who work in school districts and universities are familiar with that. And the WIOA, the Adult and Family Literacy Act. And then you remember how we have really advocated for DACA, and maybe there's not a pathway yet. It was not, that bill was not voted on. The National Education Policy, the immigration and inadmissibility, you have, I think, been following those things as well. And you'll know that those are important and we need to make a difference. And the Bilingual Education Seal, BEST, is another great priority. And then we'll be using Census 2030 recommendations to support those bills.
Wonderful. So I think a question that we ask is, you see these really big pieces of legislation, the biliteracy seal, international education, DACA, Title I, 3, et cetera, and think, we can barely even say some of those words, barely even have, know what they are. And so how can I, just as an individual, can I really make a difference in any of these things? And I think that's a question that I have for sure. And the answer that we want to supply today is that yes, we absolutely can, as individuals, make a difference. And we're not only going to hear about how Liz, as an individual, has made a difference, again, representing TexTESOL 5, but also how we ourselves, even right here in the comfort of our own homes, can be a voice on behalf of some of these major pieces of legislation.
And the other key about the pieces of legislation is some of them, as Katie said, might be too in depth and you may not understand. So there's a tutoring, like during the conference, where you get to meet the people that work in these departments in DC at Capitol Hill, and they do the explanations, run PowerPoints for us, so that when we go to visit the legislators at Capitol Hill, we're informed.
Yeah. So that's kind of step one, is a little bit of education before you can then go and know exactly what the difference that we're trying to make, I guess. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. But tell us about some of the differences, Liz, that have been made over the years.
I feel like in the beginning, the format of the conference, it was in person. Then we had to transition to Zoom meetings when COVID happened. And then last year, we had a hybrid meeting. Some people joined us in person, and the cameras were filming the speakers, so they got to see that in the privacy of their own state and their own home. And what we received here, the chart and breakdown that you see here, is what our advocacy policy person at TESOL International, Jeff Hutchison, sent us. And he said, this is what we were talking about, the act and the title for 2022, and the 2023 is what was signed and approved by Congress. And so as you see, Title I had 17% increase from 17.5 billion to 20.53 billion. The Title II had a very small increase. The ESSA Title III, 7%, and the WIOA had another significant addition. So we don't always get everything that we want funded, but as people talk to us, they say any additional budget would be appreciated and utilized by our districts and our universities and adult parent programs.
Yeah, so these are actual dollars, a lot of mini dollars. These are big numbers. Yeah, these are big dollars that are able to fund
really programs. Don't talk about the billions,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a lot of zeros. But this is directly the effects of TESOL and other like-minded organizations. We're going and talking with members of Congress and saying, we're needing the funds so that we can do these types of programs. And this is a tangible result that you've seen from
exactly. And there are other partners. When you go to the meeting, the American Federation of Teachers, National Geographic, Colorín Colorado, there's a lot of people that are interested because they're creating materials that the teacher can use in the classroom that are very important. And so the funding is important. So if we partner with them, if they partner with us and with TESOL International has a huge voice and a huge group of membership that can, when somebody reads the bill and they say, who are you representing? It makes a very big difference. This is a document with points that we carry with us to the office. They give us a portfolio. It's very prepared and it's very professional. And the talking points, the bullets are here. So you don't have to stumble around. You've heard the actual person speaking to you about the programs, but it helps you leave. It's a folder that you leave at their offices. So when you leave and you spoke to them about some anecdotes or children from other countries that you serve, they'll have the points to remember.
Oh, how interesting. So you're not just meeting with them, but also leaving some sort of a reminder of the key things that you want, key takeaways you want them to remember. Well, tell us more. So you've talked a little bit about this this advocacy summit that you attend in Washington, D.C., but can you break it down for us about what is this event like? What happens when you're there? And just tell us about some of your experiences. You've been many times now and are kind of one of the more senior members of the group, now mentoring others. So tell us what is this like?
Well, I think you'll see something posted, or maybe we have it in another slide, Katie. They've already decided on the year for the Advocacy Policy Summit in DC. So you can talk to your principal, talk to someone at your university if you want to send some people on your behalf. So it's ready. In the past, in the beginning, they used to pay for a membership and then provide a little bit of from their budget for travel, like air travel, because if you're not living in that area, it's obviously a little expensive, very expensive. And then the days you stay. So what has happened from the beginning is they've been able to use less money for that. The organizations that I just kind of mentioned are people that provide the luncheons and the things for the meetings that will help the people attend to the meeting and stay at the hotel and be able to focus strongly. So everybody in Texas, we have 5 TexTESOL units, except for El Paso isn't active right now, TexTESOL 1. So everybody agrees to send a representative. And during the years you've seen, or you'll see a slide that says, this year there were 11 participants from universities, school districts, DACA students, and then last year, there were only 2 people. I went and Lana McNeil went, and she's a teacher, a high school teacher that has quite a diverse group of immigrants in Texas, in North Texas. And so she's able to go, and any other people that are interested can go, providing they pay the fee to register, and they're approved because there's just a certain number of slots available.
Yeah, so anyone can go.
Yes.
Even a teacher like Lana is able to go. So this is something that's open to anyone. We send, as a board, we send 1 representative, and like you said, there's other affiliates in Texas. There's a Houston affiliate and San Antonio. Each of them typically would also send someone else, so that hopefully we could have quite a few representatives from Texas. Is that right?
Yes, and we always make an impact when we're introduced at the presentation conference room, when they see that Texas is a large state. So the fact that we have many representatives, people are always kind of impressed that you're coming to the table to make a difference.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it would be strange if Texas wasn't represented. So it's really important that we be there, right? So, okay, wonderful. Well, let's move on. Tell us about when you go each summer. It's typically, I think, a 3-day thing. So what happens over those 3 days?
So as you see, there's an opening session with a keynote speaker, and sometimes the keynote person is a assistant deputy or head of the Department of Education, or some other person that has a lot of knowledge about research and trends and so forth. So the first day, that session establishes the why and how, what's happening at this event, and the fact that we can make a direct impact on federal policy. Sometimes it used to be that you had to come in the day before, because the sessions, you start registering that morning at 7. So people who come in or fly in by 7, they've missed part of the, like the keynote. So that what they did is, now this past year, you could fly in on a Sunday and you had the opening session and networking that evening. And then the next day you delve right into the policy and advocacy sessions. And there are some general speakers, congressmen, their aides, attorneys who work with students with immigration. And so it makes it gives you a great overview of what's going on there and how that can be part of something that you're doing in your district that you might not have been aware of. So then the following day, so on that afternoon of the second day, we meet together. They have someone who tells you about the ropes of how you go to, how you get on the metro, which buildings, Rayburn, Longhorn, the Senate building, where are your representatives? Who are you going to visit? It's the Hart building where the senators are. And so, though, if you're a traveler and you've navigated the metro in different countries, it's not so tricky. But DC is a big place, and there's some little rules that you have to follow. You know what I mean? You're as you go there, we're there. TESOL is there, but there's different people, groups advocating for people who have a certain type of cancer. They're telling their legislator about their needs, and that's so important. And sometimes, I think if you've been in bilingual ESL education or working with English language learners, sometimes it's not a popular ask to make. So these little points say you introduce yourself, you tell them about your program, and then you say, and this is what we would like to happen. We'd like to have this amount of money approved for running the programs. And then the last day in the morning, you meet and you travel to DC. There's Metro maps. There's a Metro app that we put in our phones. Now, toward the end, like let's say 7 years ago, it wasn't as popular, but you had to ride the Metro with the people that are going to work and every day on the Metro. So you can now do an Uber or a Lyft. But when you go, as you visit the offices, these are some, I think I have a large stack of cards that it has the in gold, the American Eagle, and these are different senators' offices. And then what it does is, some of them have the different offices that you can visit in your own hometown. And you know what I love about this? This is a Grand Prairie rep, Mark Vesey, that I always I try to visit because I see him at events here in Grand Prairie, like Cinco de Mayo, perhaps, and I said, hi, I'm going to Washington and I'm going to make an appointment to speak to your legislative aide at your office. So it's kind of like, for example, this event, if you're their constituent, they bend over backwards to make sure that they do see you. So Mark Vesey told his legislative aide, I'm in a meeting here at this location. When they get here, knock on the door and call me out of the meeting. And he did step out and speak to us. It makes you feel very special, and it makes you feel very heard, which is very important. It says,
Wow.
Make our voice heard.
Yeah, it sounds like you're building a relationship over time too. So that way and the fact that he stepped out and wants to see you, I think it's very significant.
And the last point is that because there's such a big number of people in our organization, in international TESOL, it says over 13,000 members, that carries weight. And then B, because we're coming, TexTESOL 5, 4, 3, 2 are coming together, we can meet with our representative, but we can also meet from a representative that's in El Paso, because usually when you log in, they want your address. And if you're not their constituent, they're not going to see you. But that's the beauty of being able to have a whole team there representing different areas. Because some of the people in other areas, like in San Antonio, they know Joaquin Castro very well. They'll know the representatives in their area. And they've already had dialogue. So everybody brings their experience to the table, and it's an easier meeting.
Yeah, that makes sense. And where you live matters. Yes. So I think for folks that might be listening to this today, as we think about, how can they get involved? I think, well, we already have someone there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you live in Grand Prairie, but there might be others that live in other areas that have other representatives that could then establish, some sort of relationship with them.
And then, Maryland may have one representative, but Texas has many. So we have our 2 congressmen that we always visit, Cornyn and Ted Cruz. And then we're able to, when something's happening, let's just say Beto O'Rourke was in El Paso, now Veronica Escobedo is there. And I watch Twitter and different things like you all do and keep up with what's happening, the current events, but you're also able to log in and register and get their newsletter, or they let you know about your town hall meetings. So you have a wider scope of what's happening in Texas. When we go there, for example, the representative from Puerto Rico, we just passed by her office, but they're legislating or trying to make a difference in that Puerto Rico becomes a state of the United States. Another door had something about dreamers. San Antonio, Joaquin Castro, he had pictures of actual dreamers from Texas. And when we had that terrible incident in Uvalde of the elementary, was it Robb Elementary School?
Yeah.
You know, people have all the things that they're advocating for in their area, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to support and defend and promote things that are good for the people in their district.
Sure, absolutely. Well, sounds like such an interesting, busy 3 days. And you're right there in the metro, shoulder to shoulder with all of these movers and shakers in Washington, D.C. That sounds so
And when
exciting.
you walk down the hall and they pass you, you've seen them on TV and you know who they are, but it's just a whole different feeling, you know?
Yeah. Well, I want to see some of your pictures. So let's see. I think we've got some of your photos over the years. So just talk us through and just let me know when you want me to change slides, but talk us through what are some of these photos of different experiences you've had?
That says 2015 Summit. That is the legislative aide in blue, the tallest person there from John Cornyn's office. There's the first person is from San Antonio TESOL, and then Houston, and then there's TexTESOL 5. They have their doctorates, they're teachers, they're professors, they're people who work with the community. And so the next slide, there's Joaquin Castro's office. This young lady in the orange is the rep from there. Her last name is Sanchez, and she was there for 2 years. But normally when you meet, there's a whole new person there, a whole new legislative person, a whole new scheduler. So you have to keep in touch. But what happens is you familiarize yourselves with their offices. So for example, in John Cornyn's office, they've invited us in to sit down, but some years we just do a little 10 to 12 minute talk in the hallway or something that's convenient to the office. And those are the tips that we get from the Advocacy Policy Summit. You have some time and you schedule the meeting so you can get to the next meeting, but it's important that you don't feel disappointed because you didn't sit in their office, because they're very busy. And so we're very fortunate to make connections in this way. The next slide.
I'm sure any time that you're grateful for with these busy people.
Yes. So this one, there's people from, as I see professors, 2016 Summit. You know, there's some people that go, maybe there were 4 of us. Okay. So we try to make as many appointments as we can on that one day. And I feel like when we come in for the debriefing meeting meet back together with everyone in the policy summit, Advocacy Policy Summit, we've like visited like 12 people. We're like all about it. And sometimes we'll split up because these 3 people are familiar with this legislator and we can widen our scope. So it's exciting.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, let's see.
Once again, this is another group. This was when we had the very largest year, biggest groups ever representing. I see a professor. There were 2 professors from the universities in Houston, the lady in the pink in the center photo with the polka dotted dress. She's a teacher that teaches with Lana. The woman in the back in the corner, she's a principal. So you get to meet, what's impressive? There are so many smart people showing up at these meetings with such experience. So every year brings a new person with a new talent, and it's wonderful. It's very appreciated. And we get to learn about their programs.
Absolutely. That's neat to hear that there's principals and teachers, district administrators, et cetera, people from all over.
University professors.
Yeah, and university higher ed is represented as well. That's great.
Right.
Okay, let's keep
you see
going.
the statues or that sculpture in the corner. There's a hall that has that every state says one sculpture or one statue that in the rotunda there, and you can see what they've sent. Here in the center where you see the Capitol, that you see it in the right one, the man in the tie, the striped tie, he's from Puerto Rico. They sent 2 people, a young girl and he came, but they don't have legislators to meet with. So they traveled with different groups of people so they could listen and learn the ropes about how you made the appointments, what you spoke about. It's very impressive. We have bilingual ESL directors, Title III directors, people from the, what do you call it, Katie, the International School of Languages? What do you call that core? Anyway, there are people, in different years, we have someone from those locations, and you see us at a luncheon and then outside. So just walking by, when you've been watching things on the news and you walk by the Supreme Court, Katie and I were talking, it's like, wow. And you see that, like, you see the dome of the Capitol. One of the years it was covered or surrounded by scaffolding because they were redoing that. And you can't forget that. I mean, you were there when that happened. You're knowledgeable about which stop you need to get off at to make it to the building where your representatives are. So this is like crazy, and there's like lots of these. This is a little scheduling thing where different people are calling, and then you're putting down the legislator, the person that's his aide, what's the name of the person you actually spoke to, their direct phone number, their office number, what building, and the time that you're meeting with them. And so sometimes they have a certain amount of time. So you start this way, and then this little slot is open. Can that person meet with us then? So it's a lot of organization and a lot of scheduling. And we, like I said, the beautiful thing is that people actually know these persons, and they said, hi, I'm so-and-so. Could we meet with you? We only have about 15 minutes. We could meet with one of your aides, and they're very accommodating. I don't have anyone who's ever said no that I've experienced in our group that they've said no to.
Wow. That's saying something for sure.
On the bottom right, that's
right.
Catherine. She was in a wheelchair. So she traveled from her city in a wheelchair. Every year they have the poster board that lists, the dates of the conference. That person's from the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I feel like they're friends. And you see us holding the Texas flag. And when we first arrived only to the meeting, we carried the flag with us. But when we arrived to the meeting, we also had some, those crazy 4th of July sunglasses, mm-hmm. and then necklaces. And you have to stand and be introduced. So we've made a kind of a big splash. And then we're very reserved when we get to the offices and just take the
took off your fancy sunglasses. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, I love that Texas is there and making a statement. Mm-hmm. Both for TESOL.
Never taken a flag. So yeah. You're taking a look at the blue square that says hybrid format, live and video, the 2-day conference. So we were able to arrive. And when you meet people that you've seen there before, it's kind of like I was telling Katie that sometimes when there's a group of 11, it's kind of hard to wrangle, like when you're taking your family to Disneyland or something, when there are less people, you can move very quickly, like let's go here or let's go there. But when there are more, you have to negotiate all of that. You see Jamie Raskin there. We were going to Joaquin Castro's office, and they told us that he was busy, he couldn't fit us in. So we dropped off one of these folders, and so we knocked on the door. Sometimes the doors are closed. We knocked on the door, and everybody looked at us like, who is that? And it's me and Lana. And so they're having some kind of a birthday party thing with the people in their offices, which is, I know why he couldn't go. So as we see him, Jamie Raskin comes by with a group of reporters following him because they've been doing some things on the January 6th incident that we had at the Capitol. But when we turned around, Joaquin Castro was walking down the hall with his son and daughter. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I met his family. And I know people in San Antonio that know that family, but it's pretty amazing. Mm. And then on the bottom left-hand corner, that's Jeff Hutchison. I don't know if any of you have some experience, but Paul Segota and then David Cutler, and now Jeff Hutchison is the new Advocacy Policy Director.
Wonderful.
Everybody has their flag, the United States flag, and whatever specialty flag flying outside of their office.
Oh, makes sense. Well, yeah, and I think one of our questions is, this is an annual thing. And so we only had 2 from Texas last year. We had 11 at one point. It can be hard to, manage an unwieldy, huge group, but also 2 is not that many, especially, we want the representation from Texas to be strong. So I think the question for those listening today is, can you lend your voice? Would you be interested in traveling to DC this summer? If so, we're going to encourage you to save the date. The date's coming up here, June 20th through 22nd, and it will be, of course, in DC. But let's say that you can't make it. You think, gosh, I don't know that my district would pay for me to do that. I don't know that I have the personal funds to be able to do that. But I still want to make a difference. The great thing is, and I think really, especially coming out of the pandemic, because we've had these kind of hybrid and virtual options, what they're now doing is the third day, when you have all of these folks in person in DC advocating in the flesh with all of our representatives, that same day is a virtual advocacy day where they ask all TESOL members to contact their representatives. And TESOL has made it so easy to do that. It's a 5-minute investment at the most, and it allows our voice to be stronger, even if we don't have all of the folks there in DC. And so we wanted, now that we're kind of wrapping up, we want to show you how you can take action. And so at TESOL.org, we're TexTESOL 5, but TESOL International is our parent organization. So at their website, you can go to TESOL.org to their advocacy page, and you'll see there's a giant sign right now today that says build your relationship with the 118th Congress, because that Congress just started their work. And so when you go, I want to just show you a little bit of the advocacy resources that are available. So you'll see I'm here at TESOL.org. I go to Advance the Field and Advocacy Resources. And then on down, I can find the Action Center, TESOL Advocacy Action Center. It's that. Let's see, I'm going to go back up right there. It's that one. And click on it, and you'll see that same icon. The logo's up there at the top, and then where it says build your relationship with the 118th Congress. Now, there's not any specific legislation that TESOL is wanting to weigh in on at this moment, because Congress is still just getting started. And so we're trying to figure out, and they've just established the budget, obviously, which we know that there was some great gains in the budget. But for now, what you can do is you can just let your representatives know, hey, this is who I am, this is where I work, and these are the types of things that I'm interested in. And so on this next slide, I'll show you specifically how you can get in contact with your representatives, and it is so easy. So when you go to this page, you can compose a message. And it's a pre-populated message. All you have to do is just take out Program School Institute and put in where do you work, and then just tell a little bit about yourself. What do you teach? Who do you teach? I went ahead and I'm filling in here my own. This is the address of the Rockwall County Courthouse where I live. And you'll notice when I fill that in, up at the top, automatically it tells me John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, Pat Fallon. Those are my representatives. And so I now all I have to do is finish this out by making sure that I've customized it. I want to say my name's Katie, this is where I work. And then I push send, and it automatically is going to send a message to my representative. So after I fill out the automatic form, that's as easy as it gets. I click submit, and then usually what happens is I will receive some sort of response back from these representatives. It's usually some type of a form letter. This is not something that they have hand typed themselves to me, I'm sure, but usually an aide or someone else is going to respond back. This is an example here from last year. I had contacted John Cornyn through the TESOL Advocacy Center about adult education. Again, I didn't know all the details about this particular matter, but it was all supplied for me. The letter was there. I didn't even have to edit anything. All I had to do was just click my name, address, and submit. And automatically I was able to let John Cornyn know that I was concerned about adult education. And so this was the email that he had sent back to me. And so this is likely the type of communication that you'll get back. So it may seem really scary to be reaching out to these representatives, but first of all, they represent you. That's why we have them in these offices. They want to hear from you and know the things that are important to you. But also, this is very low stakes communication here. I didn't have to pick up a phone. There's nothing. There's nothing out of the ordinary of my typical life of just sending someone an email and getting a reply back, kind of a thing. So I encourage you, take advantage of that TESOL Advocacy Center. If you're thinking, how can I get started? Okay, so we've heard about Liz's experiences. Maybe that's piqued your interest. Maybe you think, well, that may not be for me. I don't know that I can see myself in DC, but what can you do even today? Well, two things. One is you can go to the TESOL website. I've got my QR code here with the dinosaur, so you can scan that. It'll lead you back to that same site on TESOL.org, the Advocacy Center, and you can sign up for alerts. So you put in your email, you put in your zip code, and anytime that TESOL has created new materials that we're wanting to push out to our representatives, they'll email you and let you know, hey, can you log into your advocacy center and reach out to your representatives? Or your other option is you could do sign up for alerts, but you could also go ahead and compose a message today to your representatives, just like you saw that I did. Again, we're not trying to advocate for a specific piece of legislation right now. Right now, it's just we're introducing ourselves and letting them know the types of things that we're interested in. But you can do that today. The form letter is already there. So step 1, step 2, and within about 10 minutes, you can already be an advocate for English learners and their teachers. Liz, tell us a little bit more about how people can get in contact with you and just anything else that you want us to know about this.
So you can go to the TexTESOL V, which is a Roman numeral, right? 5.org website. Every officer, every board member, I'm advocacy. You can write to the treasurer and so on and so forth. I've had a cold and I'm suppressing this cough, but I would love to hear from you at this address at the bottom, advocacy@texttesolv.org. If I know that there are people out there that are listening to this presentation that have done huge advocacy work, and if you want to share with me, I'll be very happy to listen, because that's how we all grow together and can make a bigger impact. Let me say that the new advocacy person, Jeff, he'll send a note. If there's some important thing that's coming out, he'll send it to the people that went to the advocacy meeting. But we, in turn, when you register for our conference, you automatically become a member of TexTESOL 5, and you can go into the website, and it's free, and you can use those services. What I'm saying is you can read all the past newsletters of all the advocacy trips that we've had. You can communicate in any way with Katie. Katie is treasurer at texttesolv.org, but please write to us. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for those of you that are interested in doing advocacy work, those of you that are doing it already. We want to have a strong voice, and we appreciate that you're part of our community. So thanks, Liz. I learned so much from you today, and so can't wait to hear about the 2023 trip to DC.
And I love Katie because she's the techie genius. Thank you, Katie. We couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being here, guys.
Bye.